There we go, Chair, we're live.
Thank you very much. Prynawn da pawb, good afternoon and welcome to the Economies, Residents and Community Scrutiny Committee today on Wednesday the 10th of June. I'm Councillor Angela Davis, the chair of the meeting, and I have with me today members of the committee, council portfolio holders and officers. So welcome everybody, thank you for joining us today. Item 1 on our agenda is any apologies for absence.
Okay. Yes, Chair, we've received apologies from Cabinet Member Councillor David Thomas, from officers Daniel Burgess, Diane Reynolds, Jenny Ashton, John Forsey, Marie James and Nina Davis.
Lovely, thank you very much. So item 2 on our agenda is the election of our Vice Chair, and I believe we've got some nominations.
We've received a nomination for Councillor Gary Mitchell to continue. Councillor Gary, if you can just confirm that you're happy to do so.
I am.
And then if we can have a proposer and a seconder or any other nominations from committee members, please.
I propose.
Lovely, thank you, Peter. So Peter to propose, and Corinna, you had your hand up to second. Yep. Lovely, thank you. And we, just as a formality, we better check, were there any other nominations? No, everybody happy with that? All happy to re-elect our Councillor Gary as Vice Chair?
Thank you all.
Full house. Thank you all very much, and thank you, Gary, for agreeing to stand as our Vice Chair. So item 3 on the agenda is disclosures of interest. So this is to receive any disclosures of interest by members relating to items to be considered at the meeting. So just a note here that we have an agenda item on the rural estate policy, and we've been advised that should any member be a council farm tenant, that they may have to declare an interest, or if you have any other interest that you're aware of, members. Okay, so we've got no hands up, so we're going to assume that there's no declarations there. So thank you very much. Disclosures, sorry, no disclosures of interest. Item 4 is the declarations of party whip. So this is to receive disclosures of prohibited party whips, which a member has been given in relation to the meeting in accordance to section 78.3 of the Local Government Measure 2011. So members, by show of hands, do we have any declarations of interest in that regard? Or declaration, sorry, of party whip? No, excellent. Right, members, so the item 5 on our agenda is the minutes of our former meetings, and we've got 3 sets of minutes here from previous meetings. So on page 6, we have the minutes from 11th of February, where we discussed the climate and nature roadmap to net zero. And we made 14 recommendations there. Now you'll note that we don't have any responses as yet, and that is due to the pre-election period that fell when those would be coming back to us. So I don't know, do we have a date of when we'll get them back, or would that be at our next meeting? Kath, are we aware? I should have checked that perhaps before. Anyway, they'll be on our next agendas as soon as possible, but everybody should have seen the minutes, so we should be, are we happy to accept the minutes from that meeting? Can I have a, Peter, you've got your hand up, are you proposing?
Just a quick question, Chair, is on page 15 under item 9, the heading of the items there, but there's no text, is that correct?
Just going by 6. Page 15, you say, Peter?
Page 15, yeah. Item 9 in the minutes. The
climate and nature route map, is that?
That's it. And there's no text.
I'll double check on that. Thank you for noting. And if I will let you know. And if there is a comment in there, I'll make sure that that is put in.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Well spotted, Peter. Thank you very much. So then on page 17 of our pack is the minutes from the 18th of February. We had the Q3 performance where we made 1 recommendation, and the housing HRA report where we've made 2 recommendations. And again, because of the pre-election period, we won't have had the responses to those. But are we happy, members, to accept those minutes as they are for now? Yeah, any comments on those? No. Okay, that's excellent. So then on page 29, from the 12th of March, we had the Household Recycling Centre booking system, and we've made 9 recommendations there, members. So again, the minutes as they stand, pre-receipt of those responses, are we happy with those minutes? Okay, lovely. Thank you. No response, no comments there. Okay, so in item 6 is responses to previous scrutiny recommendations, and we've had a little bit of trouble over a period of time getting some responses. Some have been a little bit slow, and I know we've done a lot of work with our support staff to make sure that our responses to recommendations are, apart from this pre-election period, coming back more timely. But here we've got 2 very old sets of recommendations that we finally got. So the first was from the 20th of June 25, and that was on the local transport bus routes. And you'll see there, members, that we made 2 recommendations. One was accepted and one was partially accepted. So members, have you had a look at those? Obviously the accepted, I assume we're happy with that. We're given quite an in-depth response as to why the second was partially accepted. Are we willing to accept that, albeit it's all a little bit historical now? Members happy with that? Anybody got any comments there? No, getting some nods, so that's good. Thank you very much. And on page 43, we've got the presentation of the economy and climate route map, wasn't it? So we've got 13 recommendations, so quite a hefty set here. We had 4 accepted, 7 partially accepted, and 2 have been rejected. So again, members, do you have any comments, questions, concerns about those? Councillor Gary.
Yeah, just obviously recognising the feedback. I think it's absolutely fine, quite robust feedback, but the first one that was rejected around that refocusing, our request to refocus the programme towards the wider authority area as well is still, I think, a valid concern and question and desire. Fully appreciate that resources and stuff are tight, so I guess my request would be just for the climate and nature steering group that we have, or the working groups that we have, to consider how they begin to transition from just looking internally to looking externally. So nothing formal on the minutes needing amending, just that sort of desire really to try and shift the focus when we can.
Yeah, okay. Any other comments? So the only comment I would make is to thank officers for bringing those forward. I know we've been chasing you for a while. They somehow slipped through the net, but I was really pleased to see that in these responses we have got some time frames built in, because it's really important when we make recommendations that we can see clear outputs or impacts of those recommendations when they're accepted, and that we have some clear time frames of when something's going to change. So thank you for that. Item 7 on our agenda is our forward work programme. So members, you can see there we've got the next 3 months.
Chair, did you miss one set of feedback? There was a further set, I believe.
I may have then. Bear with me.
Just make sure I'm not wrong, looking at the wrong pages.
Page 47 of the big pack, Chair,
yeah.
Regarding the HRA business plan.
I beg your pardon. Yes, indeed. So we've got, I'm just scrolling down to that. So members, you can see that there, the recommendations. I'm going to have to quickly count them up in my head. There we go. Bear with me. There we are. So we had, you can see that the first one there was a little bit more complicated in that it was partially accepted and partially not. There's quite a lengthy response to those questions. So has anybody got any comments or further questions based on those responses? So on page 48 actually of the full pack. Okay, now everybody's happy with those. So again, thank you to the officers for providing. It does help us when we have a full in-depth response to our scrutiny recommendations. It helps us understand the decision making behind that. So that is appreciated. Thank you very much. There we go. And we've done the household recycling one, didn't we? Did I do that one? Yeah. Okay, everybody happy with those? Welcome, Sandra. No problem at all. I got a message in the chat. Sandra's joined us. So now we move on to item 7, which is our forward work programme. And we've got the next 4 months meetings in there. Everybody happy with how that's looking? We've got some sort of really good and challenging work ahead of us. Yeah, no hands up.
Sorry, Chair.
Councillor Gary, yeah.
Just a question on the LDP. Do we need to discuss that here in committee as to why it's been removed or not? So perhaps it's a sort of point of clarity rather than a direct question.
Yes, I don't know if the portfolio holder or if Gwilym is here as officer would like to explain. I understand it's to do with the 2 outstanding matters that are in abeyance with Welsh Government. Councillor Jake?
Yeah, I think was there a request from the auditors to make sure that we'd discussed reasons as to why or had justification as to why things were removed.
Councillor Jake?
I can't comment on why it's been removed because I wasn't party to it being removed from your work programme. But just to clarify that obviously there are delays in the LDP production process at the moment. That there are multiple reasons for that. One of which, of course, will be familiar to members in the sense that we had the proposals before us at full council for a new national park in the north of Powys. And of course, what we set out in providing a response to the government at that point in time was that a new national park proposal coming forward would trigger a review of the local development plan, which has made it somewhat difficult to progress at the pace that we were doing originally, and we've had to look again at the programme. Now, to provide some reassurance in respect of that, every year we have to produce an annual monitoring report which sets out how the existing development plan is being delivered against in terms of housing and employment land coming forward, etc., but also resetting the programme of work in respect of the new LDP. So that work is ongoing. I can't, I'm afraid, give you the detail of that because I don't have it myself at the moment, but it is a dialogue that I'm having with, I can see Daniel Burgess as the lead officer here in respect of that. And of course, we have had some staffing issues within the team. You'll recall that Peter Morris, the lead there, has left the authority, and we have advertised 3 times now to find a suitable replacement for that strategic planning post, and we'll continue to try and fill that so that we can obviously have the sufficient resource at a high enough level to carry on with this work. But there is still stuff going on the scenes. I can't explain why it was taken out of the programme, and I will bring a report in front of members setting out a clear programme as soon as I have that available.
Thank you. So would it be more appropriate that we mark that as delayed for now rather than removed, and perhaps discuss it further in our work programming committee? Would that be suitable, do you think, Councillor Gary?
I can't comment on that, but I'd be more than happy if you did that and for us to come back at a further stage.
Yeah, okay, lovely, thank you. I think we'll do that, Councillor Gary. Yeah, thank you. Okay, members, so on to the substantive items for today. So item 8 on our agenda is the Q3 25-26 performance on our corporate and strategic equality plan. And I can see that Catherine is here. You're going to present this for us today, Catherine?
Yeah, thank you
and
very much.
I think it might be useful, I know it says in the report, but it might be useful if you were outline to us why we're having Q3 now, given that the dates that it applies to. So that would be useful, I think.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, in the agenda pack, page 60, you can see the report there. So this is Q3 performance against the Council's corporate and strategic equality plan. So the report was approved by Cabinet on the 24th of March and is now before scrutiny. And this is in line with the agreement of scrutiny chairs to undertake post-scrutiny of performance reports, and also due to the pre-election period, as mentioned earlier, this is the earliest opportunity for the committee to consider. So the report itself provides an overview of the 3 wellbeing objectives and provides commentary for all off-track measures. The committee's role is to consider progress, value for money, and areas within the remit of ERC. Education and social care topics will be considered by their respective scrutiny committees separately. So the purpose of the report is to constructively challenge. So just to give you a very quick highlight and then dig into more detail, in Q3 there was progress with grants awarded and sites such as Cymru Tech Park. Highways exceeded their resurfacing target. Homelessness continued to reduce with high tenant satisfaction and improvements in repairs and contract management. However, some housing compliance measures did need some improvement. Recycling performance dipped slightly, with rights of way remaining below target and planning timescales being above target. Strong social media engagement took place with more online services and progress in AI tools and web chat, with people booking more appointments, submitting payments and tracking highway requests online. Recruitment performance improved with fewer vacancies and a higher proportion of posts filled on the first attempt, and apprenticeship appointments have returned to expected levels. The call answer rate within income and awards recovered following a temporary dip, which was experienced during a trial of extended phone line hours. So services and portfolio holders are represented here today and ready to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Lovely, Catherine. Okay, members. So, Catherine, were you going to share the scorecard? Would it help members if the scorecard is on the screen for you? So you've got the report in your pack. Okay, there we are. Okay, members, so over to you for your questions, please. Just take that off. Councillor Peter Lewington.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 3 questions, if I may, looking at the paper that's in the pack. I'm on page 67 of the pack, and it was measure 103 around contact with the corporate contact centre. And in the commentary, it mentions that customers mainly cited the long call waiting times. I wondered, is there any reason behind those long call waiting times? I guess beyond the obvious one, which is volume of calls.
Okay. Councillor Rafe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll provide as much detail as I can on this and then bring in either Jane or Ellen to provide some operational detail. But yeah, Councillor Peter, you're absolutely right. There's a number of factors that influence this. The number of calls being one, and of course, that is influenced by not always problems, but sometimes linked to problems across other service areas of the council. In the corporate contact centre is the main contact centre that residents contact the council through, and of course, if there's issues going on in other services, then they will come through, and we will then receive a higher number of calls. And another factor sometimes is resource as well, and there's some commentary in the report around some of the resourcing challenges that we face, especially over that period in Q3, whereby some of the holidays that occur does present some challenges to us in managing annual leave. But I'll hand over to the service to provide you with a bit more detail on that. I can see Ellen's just put her camera on. Over to you. Thanks.
Yes. Hi all. Yeah, just to add in terms of the reasons behind that, as Councillor Devlin just kind of laid out, I think one of the major reasons was in terms of the timing. It was winter time, so there was an increase in calls during that time. There was a level of staff sickness during that time as well. So the combination of staff sickness and the number of calls coming in because of the winter time. There was also an increase in call. I don't know if members recall in terms of out of hours service that we had. So there was some increase in calls in them as well. So those were the kind of 3 reasons for that, Councillor Pete.
Okay.
If I may come back in briefly, Chair.
Yes, please do.
So I hope we can provide some reassurance that we've addressed this in the short term. In the longer term, we are looking to reduce the need for residents to contact the council through the telephone service. Of course, that will always be available for those residents who do not have access to digital platforms, but we're investing a lot of resource and time into maximising the amount of self-serve options that are available to residents to access services through. And that's a strong part of the digital transformation program, of which I've mentioned to you in previous meetings, that will be coming forward very soon to the Governance and Audit Committee, where we'll be investing in more self-serve opportunities with a view, of course, to improving services. But the knock-on effect will be to reduce the number of calls that the council receives, not just to the customer, not just to the corporate contact centre, but to all the other contact centres across the council, which will free up the resource that's available there and allow people to answer calls more quickly, and hopefully then that will translate into an improved customer satisfaction in respect of this. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Peter, did you want to come back?
Yeah, only a brief comment, Chair, for me. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Rafe and Ellen, for the responses there and understand. And I guess, yeah, pleased to see there's a plan in hand to address that, because I guess the two main factors you mentioned is winter time will be coming around again. And then when we look further down in the report, I think the staff sicknesses, the actual is only just a little bit above the target. So I think having that plan in place to address that is very important. So thank you for that.
Could I just ask a follow-on to that, Councillor Rafe, because I think that sounds great, what you're saying. We're going to move more of these contacts online so that they're more flexible and what have you. But if we look at the number 115, which is the Let's Go Andami Powys, that is online, so it is available to everybody to access it, but actually that's consistently off track as well. So I wonder, as numbers are falling in contacts there, what are we doing to increase that? We've got a target of 5,000, but we're sort of going backwards, not forward. So
no, thank you very much. So the Let's Go Andami Powys platform is very different from the self-serve opportunities and systems that I just mentioned. The Let's Go Andami Powys was a new system that we launched last year, the year before, within community wellbeing, to provide online access to people to access details about community wellbeing and sports activities going on in their local area and indeed across the county. Naturally, when you launch a new platform like that, it was very exciting. It was kind of the first of its kind, actually, and it's being used as a great example of digital transformation and increasing participation in sport and leisure across the UK by other councils. But naturally, you do get a big influx, a big take-up of numbers of people visiting that site when you launch it, which was obviously great to see. But we have, as you're rightly observing, seen a reduction in the number of people who are going on to that platform. Notwithstanding, nearly 3,000 is still, I think, a significant number for the number of people that we have in Powys overall. But you will note in the commentary that we are moving this forward. We have to keep on evolving and keep on improving the platform. And so we will soon be introducing walking routes onto that platform, where people will be able to see what routes are available within their local area in a very easy to use access, which will provide them with the ability to then navigate to those routes, but finding out the information beforehand so that they can make sure that they are appropriate and they're the types of places that people want to visit. So we really hope that that will be a significant next improvement to the platform, which we hope will translate into an increased number of people visiting, and we'll look to expand that even further in the coming months and years, and we'll be very much looking forward to sharing those details with you. But I'll get that firmed up as to exactly when we'll be launching that, but I do know it's very, very soon. We're going to start obviously with a few walking routes. We'll be launching it actually in a few weeks' time at the Royal Welsh Show. And then we'll be adding to that over the coming months to expand to walking routes right across Powys. So the platform will become even more comprehensive than it already is.
So can I take from that, you say a launch, that there'll be some publicity around that? Because
there will indeed, yes. And we're just finalising the arrangements for that.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Councillor Liz.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask about, it's on page 70 and it's number 217, the number of 20-year-old residents entering employment because of the Communities for Work programme. And it looks like that's quite good. I'm assuming that that's the target for the accumulation of the Q1, Q2 and Q3. But if it's not, please say. But my question is, are we finding that it's having an impact on outcomes? Because in previous meetings, we've seen that there's a real shortage of people in departments like highways and environmental health, for example. And I just wondered whether officers are confident that getting these people into work is actually getting them into the right place and where we really need them to improve service delivery. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Liz. I can see Daniel's got his hand up. Would you like to?
Yeah, happy to answer that one, Chair, if I can. So yeah, thank you, Councillor. It's a good question. You're right, it is cumulative, and I'm pleased to say we are seeing that progression through with that recruitment. We have actually identified a member of staff to help with that recruitment into those service areas, and that person is starting shortly. So that person will be in post to accelerate those staff into those teams as appropriate within Powys County Council.
Into things like environmental standards and environmental health, is that what you mean?
Across the piece, that they're considering where those posts may be appropriate. Yeah,
where there are gaps.
Yeah, correct.
You know, where service delivery is difficult. Is that what you're? That's what I'm asking. Is it gonna? I understand that you need to have people in all jobs, but there are some areas of the council that
yeah,
shorter staff, and it's having an impact on services. So I was kind of wondering whether there'd be any sort of focus on those particular kinds of jobs. You know, we're hearing on the news all the time about the demands that are going to be on, you know, standards, you know, environmental standards and enforcement. So, yeah. But sorry,
Okay.
I'll let you finish. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We're, you know, obviously with the employment support, we're being led quite often by those customers who are being supported into work. So I can get back to you in terms of where those opportunities have been identified exactly, but I am aware there is staff members joining Powys within various teams. So I'll get back to you exactly where those are, Councillor. I can confirm that for you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Councillor Liz. Councillor Corinna.
Oh, thank you. I was just going to refer to the Rights of Way reporting portal on page 68. And also, I think that's 123, measure 123, and also the 357 on page 75, Rights of Way condition report. And it seems that the Rights of Way department is under-resourced to resolve these issues. Could I have some assurance that more resource will be found for them? Thank you.
Corinna, that's a really good question, and I think given Councillor Rayfus told us that we're going to be adding walking routes to the Andami Powys site, so I wonder who would like to pick up on that. Who have we got from Rights of Way here today?
I'm happy to pick up on that, Councillor Angela.
Oh, Councillor Jackie.
Portfolio.
Lovely. Sorry, you're up in the corner of my screen. Sorry, Councillor Jackie. Thank you.
That's okay. I wasn't sure whether you knew it was in my portfolio or not, so I just thought I'd just give a reminder. Yes, Councillor Corinna, thank you for raising this, and it is an issue that we are very, very aware of, and we do know that our Rights of Way are under-resourced. We have been under pressure from members and from members of the public as well to put more resource into that. We have been looking at it. We may have something we can come back to within the next few weeks, but we've just got to finalise all that. So I can't actually give you any information today. It wouldn't be right for me to do that anyway. But we are very, very aware of that. And I think we're also aware that we've got to reassess these targets because we're never reaching them. And there's no point in having a target if you can't ever reach it. So we do need to have a look at that as well. But thank you very much for raising that as an issue, because it's very important to me as well and close to my heart that we actually can't deliver what we want to deliver at the moment.
Could I please just come back on, is there core funding, much core funding for Rights of Way currently?
Say that again, sorry, Corinna.
Is there much core funding, or are they all grant dependent, would you say?
No, there is core funding, but
Okay.
yes, you're right. There are grants available for different projects, and that's the way that we have to do it. So you're forever chasing in certain areas. We have a huge cost in things like bridges. That is one of our major areas of challenge at the moment, in that so many bridges are in disrepair or can't be used. And once the bridge goes out of action, then you can't use the footpath at all. So there has been a priority action on bridges, and quite a lot have been done. So I'm very happy if the scrutiny committee would like to see a report on that. I think it'd be very timely for us to do something like that.
Thank you.
So just following on, I was glad you mentioned there about reviewing the targets, because that was a general question I had about these. How confident can we, and how do these targets, what do they tell us? Because in particular, I'll stick with rights of way, as Councillor Corinna mentioned that one. 123 is the percentage of people accessing the country's rights of way open access reporting portal. So that's the number of people reporting an issue with the rights of way. And it says a high number is better. So the more people reporting, the better it is. But does that tell us that we're doing something about it, that if there's less people reporting, there are no problems? I mean, I'm not clear what that will tell us anyway, other than identify problems. So just curious in how we come up with the target itself.
I can't tell you how we come up with the target, Chair, but this was put in place so that it was easier for people to actually tell us where there were problems on the rights of way. I mean, as you can imagine, there are over 9,000 kilometres of rights of way in Powys, and we are never ever going to know exactly what's happening on all of those. But we do know that there are passionate people out there who regularly walk our rights of way, especially the Ramblers Association, etc. And we know that most people take a mobile phone out with them now. And if they can actually tell us where those areas are that need looking at as soon as they can tell us, it's much easier than when people, they take a note of it, go home, and then when they go home, they can't quite remember where it is. You can use things like what 3 words, I think that's on there as well. It's much easier for us to assess. But that doesn't really help us in another way, because we've still got to find the funding and the resources to go ahead and do that. But we do have a very strong volunteer network. The volunteers are very passionate about supporting our rights of way. And again, it's a very small group of people in comparison with the number of rights of way that we have. But they do make a difference, and their support is always very well received, and we do whatever we can to help them. It's not a perfect system, and I know Councillor Corinna is a volunteer, and I believe actually that Councillor Jake is also a volunteer as well, and they understand what's happening on the ground. But we do our best, and we try to do whatever we can to improve our network. I think we've got a long way to go yet, and I think we can do more in actually promoting our rights of way as a tourism destination, and that's something that we want to look at.
Thank you, Councillor. I didn't want to just focus on rights of way, it was general, but thank you very much. That's really helpful. So I've got quite a few hands up now. So I can see Councillor Rafe's got his hand up, but I'm going to bring a few more members in first, if that's okay, Councillor Rafe.
It was only just to build on Jackie's response, only to say that one of the reasons why that measure is there is because it was part of the digital transformation programme, was to establish that self-serve reporting system, and so we need to track the number of people who are using it. Those people would otherwise contacted the council by a phone, which is obviously not what we want them to do, and so we want them to point them in the right direction of using that self-serve system, which is much more efficient, and they'll get a much quicker response by using it. So it is important that we track it. There's a digital transformation element to that too. Thanks.
Okay, so it's a double-pronged. Okay, thank you for that. I've got Councillor Peter, then Councillor Gary, and then Councillor Peter Lewington. So Peter James first.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
And really, it's going back to Rafe, actually, this question. With the digital platform, and we've got an ageing population, I'm just really interested how the consultation was held, and was it digital consultation, or did you actually speak to members of our communities face to face? Because like I say, we have got a very aging population, and I don't want to see them isolated any more than the isolation that's around already.
No, thank you for the question, Councillor. Would you just specify what you mean by consultation? Which consultation do you mean?
Well, a consultation of going with the digital platform. I mean, Powys is moving more to digitalizing and not using landlines, and I'm just concerned that a lot of our aging population are not digitally minded. So, they do still want to use the landlines for connection, and I don't want to isolate any of our aging population any more than we have to.
No, you're absolutely right. So the digitalization of council services in respect of self-service is in addition to the in-person telephone service that we deliver. When I say in-person, we all know that gone are the days where you can go to a council office, albeit you can still visit the council offices in Llandrindod and County Hall. But we operate a Library Plus system where libraries across Powys are there as a customer contact centre. People can go into their libraries to access that in-person customer service, in addition to the telephone contact centre that we have, both in the corporate contact centre and all the contact centres in income awards, highways. They all have their own contact centre too. I suppose I can assure you that we are committed to maintaining those services. We are not going fully digital at all. There are no plans to do that. We will maintain both in-person and telephone contact centres so that people of all demographics and backgrounds, regardless of their digital ability, can contact the centre, can contact the council. So please view this, the digitalisation, digital transformation, as an enhancement to council services. It is in addition to the ways that people can already contact the council, and we do this purely to enhance the ability for people to engage with the council to improve council services and not to exclude anybody. We will not be doing that, and we'll factor that into any plans that we have going forward.
Okay, that's very, very, very sound advice there, to sort of know that we are taking on board our more senior members of the communities, being that it's quite a high proportion. Thank you.
Absolutely, and if I may just add very briefly that those residents who feel that they would benefit from further support to improve their digital literacy or ability to use digital devices can visit their local library, and they will be able to access that resource through our brilliant staff who can offer them that training free of charge to enable them to access those digital services if that is what they would like. But if they would like to remain in person or through telephone services, then they will always have the opportunity to do that.
I think certain members of our older community just want to speak to someone sometimes.
They do, absolutely, and we'll always be there to speak to them.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
I think it is important also to note that some of our older population are better at their IT than some of us not so old ones.
Very true.
So it's not just about age, it's those who are perhaps not so confident in the digital field.
Yes,
so
I totally agree. Thank you.
Councillor Gary and then Councillor Peter Lewington. So Councillor Gary, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple for me, I'm afraid. Firstly, just going to go back very briefly onto the rights of way, but perhaps not for a direct response here. I know we've discussed it a bit, but that target figure in there does worry me for 1, 2, 3. If you do the simple maths, if it's based on population, means over 22,000 people have already used the system to report an issue, and that's 22,000 issues that we're clearly behind on already. So yeah, just I think perhaps a little bit of extra clarity beyond this on what that target is trying to suggest to us, because it either reads really scarily to me or it's slightly misworded and misinformed. So let's not go for a response on that one, but just to clock that one perhaps for recommendations or follow-up. Wanted to look at action or in item 133, which is around the freedom of information requests. Concern here, before I sort of move on to general staffing and stuff, is we've set ourselves a target of 90%, but it's very clearly a legislative, legal compliance duty on us as a local authority to respond to freedom of information requests in a timely fashion. What the there's some mitigating circumstances in there for the dip in this quarter, and hopefully it's recovering in the next ones. That's okay. Get that. But what little I know about the freedom of information request process, you have a legal duty to respond to it, to say you've got it, you've acknowledged it, and then you've got a time frame to work with your full response, and you don't have to if it's unjustified in terms of length. But you can also go back to people and say, we're still working on collecting that data, bear with us, we'll get it to you, etc., etc. What this measure doesn't really show us is the clarity is, are we missing that initial response to people to say, thank you for your FOI, we've got it, we're dealing with it, or are we not giving them the information that they've requested within the statutory and legislative timeframe we've got? And either way, shouldn't it be 100% target? Because that's what we should be striving for in these legislative spaces.
Thank you very much for your question, Councillor. I'll provide a little bit of detail, and then I will bring Ellen, who can respond to your specific point about the initial response and the more detailed response. So there's two elements that affect this statistic and this target. The first is the ability for the Freedom of Information team within information governance to respond to the query itself, and so that relies on the ability, the resource that's made available to us. Unfortunately, we've had some really great staff leave. These types of people possess some great skills which are in significant demand by other employers, and so they do become very attractive to other people, and understandably they move on to other opportunities. That is a factor in affecting our the target here. And then secondly is leave and sickness as well. We have been affected by that somewhat, and that's included in the narrative. And the second factor that influences this is the delays from the service areas themselves in getting the information that's requested from the applicant or the whoever has lodged the initial inquiry from the service to the information governance team to then be compiled and responded to. There are significant delays being experienced and have been over the last few years from individual services, and this has been escalated up to a senior level, and we've made it very clear that improvements need to be made here. And you'll read within the narrative that if it wasn't for this, for those delays by those service areas, the information governance team as part of the digital service would be at 90.82%. So we would be meeting our target and a little bit more, and doing much better. And so let me assure you that this is being taken forward, and we've made it very clear as Cabinet that we need to see improvements from those service areas in their responses to the information governance team to get the information to the respective person within the time frame. I'll bring Ellen in if possible, if she's there. Oh, great. Just to respond to your point about whether there's any delays from the information governance team in responding to the, I'm using the wrong word here, but the person who asks for the information to acknowledge that we've received that. Ellen, if you could do that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, just to confirm, so in terms of the time starts from the day after the recipient has asked for that information, and that's the time frame that we kind of work to. I'm not quite sure if that was a question that you were asking in terms of whether it starts the minute they request or towards the end. We never supply part responses. The time starts as soon as it comes through, and our response time then is within the time that we're statutorily required to give that kind of response then. One thing I just want to add as well to what Councillor Devlin said as well, we've been doing quite a lot of work around being able to publish our freedom of information requests as well. A lot of the requests that we do see are repeat requests, to save the time on the information governance team and services being able to kind of go through the information. We're looking at publicising that. So it's what we're doing with the public then is pointing them to a point on the website that they're able to access that information themselves as well, which will save time of officers and improve the public being able to access that information quicker.
Okay, thank you. I can see, John, you've got your hand up. Did you want to come in on any of those points?
Sorry, Chair, it was a bit of a legacy hand, but it was, I suppose, around the rights of way issue. I think we need to be clear that we're looking at the objective one, and that's around how effectively the council improves public awareness of services. And I think, as has been mentioned before, using the digital channel is one of those ways. So perhaps we need to consider a revision to the target description along something like percentage of rights-of-way issues reported via the council's online reporting portal compared to all other reporting channels. So it clarifies it a bit better. So that was the only point. So, and thanks, Chair, for bringing it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're right. I think there are a couple here that we weren't sure what we're actually saying, that what we're actually measuring, and I think that clarity would be helpful. So thank you for that. I've got then Councillor Peter Lewington, then Councillor Adrian, then Councillor Shan. So Councillor Pete, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've just got a couple of comments and then my question, if I may. On the freedom of information request, I do agree with Councillor Gary as well, where I think it should be 100% target. I understand the mitigating circumstances we've just heard, but I don't know why we're not aiming for 100%. The other point around it is what are the consequences? Because if it's a legal duty to do this, and then we're only looking to hit it 9 times out of 10, will we get fines for the other times that we don't hit it? And the other thing that might be useful for this particular one is to actually see some numbers of freedom of information requests, because I don't know if we're only dealing with 10 there, 100 or 1,000, and that might just help the context of it. The other comment was around the rights of ways, and it says there in the commentary about reporting a problem. And I wasn't quite sure again what the definition of a problem is. So I've come across a particular issue where a resident who lives next or very close to a rights of way path goes out of their way to be particularly obstructive to any walkers who want to use the path. And I know that is reported. So I don't know whether that would be included in the definition of a problem. And then, sorry, I'm rambling just slightly. On page 69, I was looking at measure 203, the sickness absence rate, and I was first of all assuming that the targets and the actuals there are expressed in days rather than percentages. So therefore, we are setting a target or an expectation that each full-time member of staff will be taking 6.75 days off sick per annum. So questions I had around that was how is that particular target arrived at? How does that benchmark against other similar authorities? And then looking forward, as this must be impacting service delivery, because that seems quite a high figure for me, is could we have that breakdown by service, but could we also have the total number of days off sick across the organisation and the total cost of this? And also, do we record the reasons for the sickness? Because we may be able to identify some issues that we could help employees with and help to further reduce the levels of sickness. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pete. I can see we got Councillor Jake's got your hand up. Did you want to come in on that point, Councillor Jake?
I did, and obviously we're only seeing part of the sickness measures and all the data we carry behind this. So just in respect of this, every service area carries detailed information about sickness arising within those services. That's recorded, that's discussed, and there are processes in place, obviously, in terms of recording, return to work conversations, etc. And throughout all of our quarterly reporting, we have as portfolio holders conversations with staff about what that looks like in the round with HR business support people to discuss how those services get on, how that compares, etc. What I would say, and I'm not trying to not come back on all of the detail here, Councillor Pete, but I think our sickness levels as a local authority are the lowest of any of the 22 local authorities in Wales, and those days. So I think the average is somewhat higher than ours. I think the average is something like 9 days or whatever, and the health board is significantly worse than that for a variety of reasons. But also we see differences within service areas. So those staff that have a lot of contact with children or vulnerable people, they tend to have higher levels of sickness than, say, I don't know, people in the planning department, that when I discuss those, you've got people that have never had a day off. They're amongst the lowest sickness areas that we have. So they are looked at in absolute detail in comparison with other public service providers and right across Wales. Obviously, there can be costs associated with that, but we are the lowest in Wales, which is, whilst we've crept up, we remain the lowest in Wales. So comparatively, it's very, very good, Councillor Peat.
Okay, I mean, interesting to add to that then, Councillor Peat, that the other measures there that sort of link to the staff, the percentage of staff who feel valued or highly valued is below target. The percentage of staff surveyed who feel proud or very proud to work for the council is slightly below target. And yet the percentage of staff who report good or excellent well-being is higher than target. So there seems to be a misalignment there somehow. And I'm interested, I wonder what those figures would look like now, bearing in mind we've already heard that this data is actually 6 months behind now. We normally look at it retrospectively anyway at the end of a quarter, but bearing in mind it's 6 months old, I'm wondering, do we have any idea what the data is likely to be more up to date or going forward? Do we have a trend?
So just in relation to that, we do have trends, but they're annual trends,
right?
Because we carry out a staff questionnaire every year.
Yeah.
And if we look at those trends, we've encouraged more responses from our staff. And actually, again, overall, we compare very favourably with other local organisations asking similar questions. So actually, I think broadly we have a quite a happy, dedicated workforce that is prepared to go the extra mile for the authority, both specifically and when we compare to others. But it is there, and it is very valuable for you to raise the question, because what that then triggers is each of the work areas managers that are on this call to go back into the workplace, have conversations with the HR and OD team about how we reframe those questions annually to ensure that we get into a better position. And if I've now strayed off target, I've seen the chief executive has put a hand up to comment, so I'll shut up. Cheers.
Well, no, I think that's really useful, Councillor Jake, and I think it is useful to listen to all of those things in the round, isn't it? People's feelings about their employment, as well as the reality of sickness, which there may be good reasons for. So, Emma, I can see you've got your hand up. You obviously want to come in there.
Yes, please. Thank you very much. And Councillor Berryman, you certainly hadn't strayed off target, but I just wanted to point out that in 204, the percentage of staff who feel valued, highly valued, whilst the actual was 77% and the target was 85%, if you look at the narrative previously, when we did the annual element, it was 75% the actual. So we have increased, we just perhaps set the target a little too high in relation to that. But the staff wellbeing is really important to me, and the latest feedback that we've had, and one of the things that actually affects these indicators and the feeling proud is actually the negativity that you see on social media and the effects that is having on staff, when many of our staff are also residents of Powys. And so that's something that we're reviewing in respect of social media policy. And also staff feeling that where they work for the local authority, they don't feel they're able to speak up on social media, where they see comments that actually they feel uncomfortable with, or don't necessarily portray the council in the way that they see things. And so we're just reviewing that in terms of our policy and looking at what we can do to support staff further in that area.
Yep, thank you for that. All of it is important. Obviously, that affects staff in other local authorities and in other lines of work as well. So it is important. It's the modern world, isn't it? But yeah. Okay, so I've got Councillor Adrian, then Councillor Sean and Councillor Gary. Councillor Sean, you were... No, never mind. Carry on. Councillor Adrian.
Thanks, Chair. I've got a question about, on page 74,
Yeah.
Number 348 is about the recycling rate. It's slightly off target, but I don't quite understand the comment because it says that the tonnage at the HRC sites has dropped and the curbside tonnage has increased. So that's throwing it off target. So does that mean more is going to black bins, or what's the explanation for that?
Okay, so Councillor Richard, you've just put your hand up. Would you like to come in on that
Thank
one?
you. Yeah, I'll ask John Forsey to clarify, but as I understand it, because of the booking system that we now have at our recycling centres, a bigger proportion of the waste that goes to the HRCs is being recycled because it's being sorted better. So that's pushing up the rate there. But that means that a higher proportion of the total figure for recycling remains with the curbside collection. So we're actually doing better in recycling our waste at the HRCs. But I'll ask John to explain it perhaps a little better than I have.
Sorry, yeah,
Over to you, John.
In the pack, what page are we on? Sorry,
Page 74 of the pack.
Thank
The
you.
measure is 348.
Thank you. Yeah, as Councillor Church, we kind of anticipate there was a lot of DIY waste, etc., coming in, which perhaps shouldn't have been coming into the household recycling centres, which we know has had an impact. There was some, because we've had a dry summer last year as well, there was a lower tonnage of gardening waste. There has been a reported issue as well around how it was a Wales matter around the recycling of timber as well. There was an issue with how timber was being recorded as being recycled, which has impacted upon the target as well. So it's all in hand, but that was a Wales-wide problem specific to Powys. Was we knew the effect it would have on the household recycling centres and the drier summer and the lower gardening waste tonnages.
Right, but still don't understand about the curbside tonnage, so that doesn't go into any figures on recycling. I just don't understand the comments, that's all. It says curbside tonnage has increased, so that's the reason for the rate being lower. That's what it's saying. Why would that be? Am I just being a bit dense?
Due to the introduction of a bucking system and a DIY charge at the household recycling centre, the percentage of material recycled at these sites has increased.
Yep.
However, the overall tonnage throughput at these sites has reduced. So was there an awful lot of stuff that was going to these sites that was actually residual waste?
Yeah.
And now we're not doing that residual waste, so there's only the recyclate material there. Is that what it means?
Yeah, we knew that there was going to be an effect on it because of the DIY waste not coming through the household recycling centres. That would effectively be, trade waste, per se, where people are hiring.
So that is now going somewhere else.
But that's what should be happening, which is what we anticipated. Remember, these are for household recycling centres.
Okay, does that make sense to me, Adrian? Does that make sense to you?
Well, I still don't. What happens to the curbside recycling then, if it's not going in the figures? Is that the back bins or is it the recycling?
I think what it's saying there, despite the curbside going up, it didn't mitigate the effect of the household recycling centres going down. If that makes sense.
Because the amount of domestic waste is still the same, whether it's curbside or a house-side recycling. And what we've taken out of the scenario is the business waste. Is that what you're saying, John? Yeah, you're nodding. Are you happy with that, Adrian?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So again, a little bit in the wording that we get ourselves in a bit of a twist when we don't quite understand. Obviously, John, it was clear to you. It was clear as mud to us. So, but thank you for explaining that. Councillor Sean and Councillor Gary.
Thank you, Councillor Angela. In objective 1 in the scorecard, the first action is for all services, and it says we'll continue to develop principles of co-production where appropriate, but there isn't any mention of any activity around that in the narrative for this particular quarter. And there's I notice there's no measure for the development of co-production or progress towards co-production in any of the measures, and I wonder if there should be a measure there and whether there'll be a measure added in future reports. I know that quarter 3 of 25 to 26 is the last performance report available, and I'm wondering if there's going to be a co-production measure added at any point. Thank you.
Okay, good question. Who would like to take that? So it's all services, so I don't know who takes ownership of this section. No. Catherine, thank you.
Hello.
Rescuing us there.
That's fine. Yeah, no, we haven't got a measure for that one, but as you say, it is across all services, so we all provide an update each quarter. It's obviously still in development, so we haven't got a measure specified. So if you have any ideas, etc., we'd be keen to hear from you.
Okay, you're going to have a think about that, Councillor Sean. But presumably, Catherine, if we haven't got a measure, but neither have we clarified what we mean by it.
Mean by co-production? We do have a definition that we share and has been worked on across the Regional Partnership Board and Public Service Board, and it was adopted by the organisation.
Okay, Councillor Sean's nodding, so you're happy with that? Yeah. Okay, thank you, Councillor Sean. Thank you, Catherine. Councillor Gary.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just wanted to come back in on that sort of objective 2 around sort of staffing, and thank you, Emma, for sort of fully understand the clarity over how you'll try and look at improving things. But it does worry me, and I know the committee, that effectively a third of our staff feeling a bit vulnerable, unappreciated, etc., etc. And there's mitigation in there as to the reasons why, but that's quite a high figure, isn't it? Our staff is one of our biggest assets, absolutely, and I think we need to look at ways that we could improve that to the best of our ability. And one of my suggestions, perhaps, is we could think about it in the recommendations, is we have an employment committee, but all it really does is look at senior recruitment. But should their remit be broadened a little bit, at least on an occasional basis, to look at the employment figures that we're able to capture and put them in front of members in that way as well. So it's a slightly more dedicated group. So I think it is hard here to give all of these sort of real scrutiny and justice and support, which is the most important bit. So sort of a request from me. I can see some of the officers that deal in that area are on the call with us. But yeah, I think what we can't do is just let those sorts of figures slide us by without seeing what support we can give. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gary. So I don't have any more hands up now, so I'd like us to sort of have a think about some recommendations here. I think we could probably spend all day on this scorecard, but I'm very mindful that it is, as I say, slightly out of date and we're moving forward. And I think for us as a committee, it would be really useful to have those timelines so we can see how things are going over a period of time. And there are some of those measures where we only have one sort of quarters data, so maybe if it's a measure that's only judged once a year, we need to see it in comparison to its previous year. But members then, so I think we've talked a little bit about rights of way, and there was a suggestion there that we could request a paper on rights of way. Is that something that members would be minded to want to do? Yeah, I'm getting some nods. So I think that's Councillor Corinna, you got your hand up? Oh, no, you're just agreeing. Okay, lovely. Okay, so I think that's a recommendation that we would have a bit more information on what's going on in rights away and try and get to grips with those measures. Okay, so I'm going to read out some suggestions to you members, unless you've got anything you want to put forward. If you want to put your hand.
Just
Councillor
two quick,
Peat.
Yeah, just two quick thoughts if I could, Chair. I wonder just back to the freedom of information one, but just using that as an example is if the target is an external one that we've adopted, could we just perhaps identify that it's an external target? Because that would give us a bit more context around it. And then I guess the other one was, I'm not sure whether it's a recommendation or a request, is back to the number of days off sick. Would would we be able to ask for getting some figures on the numbers of days across the organisation and the total cost of that sickness as well, please?
Okay. Councillor Shan.
Thank you. I would suggest something along the lines of for services to begin to consider how they're developing co-production principles in their work and provide some narrative about that, and also for a measures to be developed.
Sorry, Sean, I think we've lost you. Have you gone on to mute?
Oh yeah, I'd finished speaking. Did you not hear me?
Apologies, I think I missed the end of that. Sorry.
And for a measures to be devised for services to use to measure their performance regarding co-production.
Co-production, yeah, okay. I've got some notes in the chat, so I'm going to read them out to members and see if this is the sort of thing we want to add. So under performance monitoring and reporting, recommend that performance reporting had been strengthened by introducing the monthly monitoring framework for underperforming indicators, with progress reviewed by the relevant scrutiny committee by the end of Q1 for 26-27. Yeah, am I having any nods or agreement? And then for addressing underperformance, it would agree that all indicators rated as red in Q3 had been subject to a clear improvement plan. Kath, I'm just checking, you're writing these up as recommendations from what's been discussed in the meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, that's it. So that all indicators rated as red in Q3 25-26 are subject to a clear improvement plan with the responsible officers identified and measurable recovery targets set to achieve at least amber status by Q2 26-27. Yeah, a couple of nods there. For data and consistency, recommend that validation processes had been standardized across all services, ensuring that 100% of performance data submitted from April 26 onwards met agreed quality assurance standards. Service delivery, we got a lot. Service delivery improvements agreed that services demonstrating sustained underperformance had undertaken targeted service reviews with findings reported to senior management and an action plan implemented with 3 months of the review date. And then under staff capacity and capability, that workforce capacity issues identified during Q3 are addressed through recruitment and redeployment, with critical vacancies filled or mitigated by the end of Q1 26-27. That benchmarking against comparable authorities, I think Peter Lewington, you mentioned this, has been quite important. Benchmarking against, I've lost my place. Comparable authorities be expanded, with at least 3 key service areas adopting external comparisons to inform improvement actions by September 26. Under risk management, recommend that performance risk identified in Q3 are fully aligned with the corporate risk register, ensuring that all high risk performance issues are formally monitored and reported. And then customer outcome focus, that performance measures are reviewed to better reflect outcomes for residents, with revised indicators in place for the start of 26-27 reporting year. And under digital process efficiency, recommend that opportunities for digital improvement identified during Q3 have been implemented where feasible, leading to measurable efficiency gains in at least 2 priority service areas for 2026. And then the scrutiny oversight, that scrutiny members have received enhanced performance dashboards enabling more effective challenge with the revised format introduced in all reports from Q4 onwards. So members, have a think about that. I can see Emma, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, Chair, I think some of those recommendations, with respect, are very broad. And I'm not sure that all came out of the debate. But if I took, for instance, Councillor Mitchell's example of they could, I'm not wishing to put words in the mouth, but what I was hearing from Councillor Mitchell around the role of is to review the terms of reference of the Employment and Appeals Committee to see if they could consider more detailed performance through the year in terms of workforce. I heard that out of the debate and could be a particular recommendation for consideration, and that could go through to Democratic Services Committee that helps us move forward, and then we look at how we service that. Or in terms of freedom of information, as an example, and the response times, there might be something more specific about how does this scrutiny think that the organisation can improve. What action can we take to try and make the improvements around our freedom of information? So I think if we could have more targeted, more specific, I think that would really help us as an organisation to move forward. Just thinking about the debate that's had and some of the discussion there, but clearly it's a matter for you, Chair, and the committee in terms of what you put forward, and that will be absolutely respected.
So, Councillor Gary, your name was mentioned there.
Yeah, I think we do need to look at how we can support, and that's what I was trying to do in my suggestion, and it's a relatively easy suggestion to put through the process, isn't it? That we have a committee already that supports the employment services of the authority. Let's ask them to be aware of these figures and see what they can do to potentially help, and we effectively move some off our area of worry and concern because there's already a group looking at it. So I think Emma's right. I think we have to be quite specific in what we want to put in our recommendations so they hopefully can be accepted. Otherwise, if they're too woolly, too fluffy or too lengthy, probably easier to say can't really do that because it's too complicated. So yeah, makes sense to me.
Okay, so have you got a proposal to put forward, Councillor Gary, as a recommendation?
Yeah, so my recommendation then would be, I'm sure Kath's captured it, but something along the lines of that we ask the Employment Committee to take on board the areas of staffing that are potentially of concern and look at how that they can support that team through their processes to improve.
Okay. Am I getting support from the committee for that as a recommendation? Yep. So, Kath, I'm just checking in with you then.
Yes, Chair.
The suggestions you put forward there.
They were only suggestions. They weren't necessarily. It was to give you some ideas as to what you may want to raise. But yeah, I agree. Some of those items possibly are, well, I agree with the Chief Exec. We need to be, I need to be more sort of explicit. So yes, I'll take what Councillor Gary, Councillor Pete, yourself and Councillor Sean
I'll put forward. So we've got four there. Okay. So that, members, it's a recommendation that we bring the Rights of Way report forward, that we ask the employment panel, the staffing panel to look into that, absency, sickness, etc. Councillor Sean, yours was about the co-production measure. Yeah.
Not just the measure. So I asked if officers could be asked to add some information about some narrative about how they're progressing co-production in their services for the narrative part, and also could a measure be devised for the measures part as well.
So a sort of how and when.
And measures. Yeah, how are you doing it, and what?
And some target dates, timeline, or something. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Sean. Okay, everybody happy with that? And Peter, Councillor Peter Lewington.
Yeah, I guess just the two bits then, just for total clarity, Chair, if I may, was just to go back on the external, the targets, to just make clear if they're external, because as I think like the FOI one is is misleading, because
Vague.
like Councillor Gary, I would have expected 100, but it seems 90 is acceptable. But we need to make clear that those targets are external and are acceptable. And then it was just, again, sorry, labouring, could we just have back the total number of sickness days and the cost across the whole council?
Okay. Anything anybody else would like to add in there? So we've got 4 clearer recommendations then going forward from this. Everybody in favour? Happy with that? Yep, getting some nods. Okay, members. So I'd like to move on now to our next item, item 10, which is the rural estate policy, and we're on pages 81 to 132. So who's going to present this paper to us?
I think it might be
got
me.
here? Yeah, Councillor Jake, thank you very much.
Thank you. Not sure by what you require by way of presentation, but I will introduce the paper, and obviously I'll help you discuss it by answering any questions. But I'm sort of looking at page 87 of the report. Of the report pack, is by way of introduction here to say that obviously we have had an old policy dated from 2018. I call it the old policy. It's been around for some time and was in need of review. We set about doing that review last year and produced a document that we thought was ready to be consulted on, and went out in September with that. Before we even got to that stage, and Councillor Shan talks about co-production, I had met extensively with the tenants groups and tenant union or farm union organisations to take soundings, and have continued to do so throughout the process. Well, we produced the policy. We went out to consultation. We had something like 91 responses, and you might find that, well, feel that that isn't many when we've got a resident population far more than that. But in relation to the comments that we got back, those comments were really helpful and really targeted, and came from those quarters we might well expect them to come from, and in such a way they helped us to shape the policy that you see before you today attached to this report. So we did look at some changes to the policy, how it was formatted, how it was presented, and the content of that, particularly the back end of the report, because the version that we went out to consultation on, it was criticised for appearing to duplicate things and be a little bit confusing. So the paper that you now have, and you see starting at page, I think, 93 in the report, clearly sets out where we wish to go with the changes in the policy. It isn't necessarily radical if you look at it from one point of view, because it is about how we manage the estate on a day-to-day basis. It isn't saying that we're going to have a serious departure from that, but we are transitioning existing tenants where they're willing, and new tenants into different ways of farming, setting up matrices around which we'll judge new tenancies, indicating that we'll move away from the tenancy arrangements, which is 8 + 8 years, to a term of 15 years as a standard tenancy, which we think has responded to what we've heard around being sufficiently short in order to make sure we get churn within the system and therefore generate new tenancies, but also sufficiently long term to give tenant farmers the ability and the confidence to invest in the holding, and therefore give them that security of tenure. We've indicated that we will consult with them during their tenancy much more frequently than we have to date, and that as tenancies come towards an end, again, we'll contact them and talk about transitioning away from the council's estate. So there will be no automatic right after 15 years to reapply for a tenancy, and the Farm Estate Advisory Group that we work very closely with, which is across cross-party membership group there were very clear that we wanted to do that. Very clear also that we wanted the tenancies to move in a more commercial way, to ensure that we got best value out of our estate for the council, and that would then help the estate be more financially viable and stand on its own feet in a way that would improve its position. Because of course we're not departing from an overall sense about how we fundamentally manage the estate. This is about managing the land and the assets and the people that we have on the land to improve, I hope, access to our estate, improve economic well-being more broadly, improve the quality of the estate, and in particular the land that we have there, and provide opportunities as we go forward to harness advantage out of the land that we own by way of things like that we don't know yet how they work, carbon capture, capturing the benefits of water management going forward, energy, affordable housing opportunities, employment opportunities. And therefore we're making it very clear that within those tenancies, if these opportunities do come and are available to Powys to take advantage of, that then we have an opportunity to trigger that, and we're being upfront within the agreements about doing so. So I think there's quite a bit of difference in this, which I'm really happy to take any questions on. And in relation to one of the points that will come up here, and it doesn't come out of the paper as such, but of the work that we've been doing with the Farm Estate Advisory Group. It's, you know, we've tried to show how what we will do is provide support to the staffing team that operate within the estate, so that they can not only just manage it on a day-to-day basis, as has been happening so far, but we can also look at being more creative around that. And so working with officers here, I'm pleased to say that we are now ready to go out and go to market to the colleges, etc., and look for a land surveyor who will provide assistance within the team to look at how we might capture some of these new opportunities that I've talked about, to sit alongside our day-to-day management of the estate. That's probably a good point to just break there. I'm sure you'll have some detailed questions, but what I would say is I'm really pleased how we've worked together across the council chamber in a non-partisan way to bring this report at what is clearly a difficult time in terms of the finances of the council, to ensure that I think, have got something that we can all take away from here that we can be proud of. So I'll see what questions arise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jake. So now over to members for their questions. And just a reminder at the beginning that come the end of this session, we will want to come up with some recommendations on this policy. It may be that you just recommend that you're happy with it as it is, but just that reminder as we kick off now. So your questions to the portfolio holder and officers. So starting with Councillor Corinna.
Thanks very much. I'm not from a farming background, but I was a local member who is present at a farm letting in my area last year, and I do recognise that the criteria for accepting new tenants has changed. It looks very forward thinking to me, and for instance, regenerative farming, you get extra points, climate change considerations, you get extra points. And I wondered, how does this align with current Welsh agricultural policy? And the other thing I was wondering about, the 15 years tenure year means that there will be slightly less churn than the 8 years before. I believe only on average, two new entrants had a chance to have a county farm in the past. Do you feel that the 15-year will affect this? Thank you.
So just in terms of how it's aligning with Welsh Government policy, of course, we're not certain where the sustainable farming scheme that we've referred to in the policy will go, and therefore we've been very careful to say that we expect our tenants to comply with the sustainable farming scheme or any such replacement. We realise that's a bit of a moving target at the moment, and we want to ensure that with the climate and nature agenda that we have, and that the government recognise that if they shift in a slightly different direction, we will obviously be seeking a shift from our tenants, and that allows us to do this. You say that I'm not certain where you get the two from in terms of tenancy turnover. We do. There is a general turnover within the existing holdings that we have. So when people are coming to the end of those 16 years or hand their tenancy in earlier, then we're reviewing all of those, and some of those will return to market and they'll go out, and that was the process that you were in. But what I would say is that in terms of genuinely new opportunities, just take the last 10 years, there have been no new genuine new opportunities to enter the farm estate in addition to the holdings we have, until we took the steps that we did last year to create the 3 new holdings at Sarn, which were the smaller units. So we've got the 3 new holdings there. They are the only genuinely new opportunities, and you can see therefore why we've been keen here to look at bare land opportunities, to create more opportunities for people to come and live and take up tenancies, or to manage parcels of land and attract genuine new persons to enter agriculture, and some of which, of course, may not have been from our local farming families or agriculture. So genuinely new opportunities, that's what we're hoping to do as well here.
Thanks. I think I saw that over the last 5 years there'd only been 9 tenancies that had come up.
Yes, they're existing ones though. Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Pete Lewington, followed then by Councillor Peter James.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you to the leader for his overview on that. I was just beginning to wonder though, if 2018 is deemed to be an old policy, I was just beginning to wonder what timescales he may apply to define an old councillor, actually. The 2 questions I had were, the first one was around, I think it's pages 103 and 104 on policy number 4, the holding review. And on page 105, there's like a diagrammatic representation of the decision-making framework. And I was just trying to confirm my understanding in terms of how often that framework would be implemented and used. I think if I'm reading it correctly, it will be done within 24 months at the end of the lease. So does that mean we would only, if you like, review the estate against this criteria once every 17 years? That was the first question.
Can I just come in on that one first? Yeah, and Pete, while it's in my head, I wasn't suggesting that. I mean, I'm sure a number of our members are getting slightly long in the tooth. I wasn't suggesting anyone in particular. But 2018, I've been a councillor since 2019, Pete. I think you were 2022, weren't you? Coming in. Yes, just in relation to that, we are looking at all of our tenancies within 2 years. So the challenge that I have is to have a 2-year programme in advance of tenancies coming to the end of their natural life at the moment, to have carried out that assessment with officers. So we have a pipeline of opportunities 2 years ahead of them arising, which coincides with those conversations that should be taking place with our farm estate colleagues, with the tenants themselves, to ensure that we're, being absolutely open about opportunities that that may arise, or not. And of course, that's those. The ones we don't know about are, for instance, non-payment, etc., where we have to have those difficult conversations because people aren't paying us, and therefore we're curtailing the tenancy, or indeed people decide they want to go and do something else, or a new opportunity arises. So, we're trying to get 2 years ahead, Councillor Peat.
Okay, thank you for that clarity, and sounds good and proactive there. So thank you for that. The other question was relating to finance on page 106, and the second paragraph there talks about a estate tenancy rental income target. And first of all, I wondered who sets the target. And then again, I just wanted to check my understanding. So if say like the overall rent target was, I don't know, set at £40, just keep it simple, and we collected £100, does that mean that excess over the target, 60 quid, all of that would be invested back into the rural estate and it wouldn't go anywhere else?
Right, it's not quite as straightforward as that, and what we've tried to do, and if I can just explain, there are the gross income for the farm estate is about 1.3, I think it's 1.3 million. Net, it's 700 and something, and that is the target that the council has for this area of income, just as it has targets or whatever for planning income that are in the FRM, and income for car parking, etc. So the farm estate, that's what it achieves and delivers back to the corporate pot, net of the money it takes to pay people to do things, and just to maintain it where it is. The reason that we're talking in this way in the finance section is because if we have the target there of that amount of money, we're saying that if we sell a property, so we know that properties are being sold, and let's say a house is sold off an estate, we get a capital income receipt for that, but we've still got the land. The revenue income will be less. So what we're saying is we need to, through a financial mechanism, reduce our target by that amount of revenue income. So let's say it drops from 10,000 to 7,000 because we've got rid of the farmhouse, but we've retained the land and it's still got value. We're saying that amount of money needs to drop as a target. So we'll keep the target where it is now, and we'll when we sell things, we will then reduce the amount that we're chasing, as it were. Otherwise, that you'd be having to put up rents in a way that isn't sustainable necessarily, to have that same target. Of course, the council has saved money because the capital receipt, that means we need to borrow less to go and build bridges or schools or whatever. So there is a net overall saving to the council, and we're saying there needs to be an ongoing arrangement between the service and financial environments to take place to keep that balanced out. So the additionality isn't all going back into the estate. We're just saying that the target is not being carried away. It's for the officers and whatever to obviously manage the estate in a positive way. But you will see that from what I've told you isn't described in the report, we think there is some headroom in there to provide some additional resource to get, as I say, a new land surveyor graduate position into there to help manage the estate in a more dynamic way. So I can't give you the numbers because we don't know what those transitions are, what we're going to sell. We're just saying that the targets there will readjust with, but all the money saved isn't going back into the estate. That will still go back to the council.
Okay. Could I just come
Okay,
back,
yeah,
Chair?
come back,
Yeah.
Pete. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, thank you for that, Leader. Yeah, sorry, all got a little bit complicated for
Yeah, I
you.
know.
So
Sorry.
it's not you're totally on the ball there. When you talked in the beginning, you said about a gross 1.3 million and then a net 700,000. And I think if I heard you correctly, you said the 700,000 was effectively the target. So in my simple mind, does that mean we are collecting 1.3 million? We're going to keep, if you like, as a target 700,000, and then the other 600,000, the difference, that would actually go into the overall pot. That wouldn't be reinvested back into the farms.
So, in terms of the financial arrangements, there is in effect no great reinvestment back into the farms. That's the cost of operating the service. So, the farm estate provides a net income to the council, which I've described. So that's its, and then its operating costs. That net income is returned to the corporate centre, having had the deductions from it. So it's not invested back into the estate. The estate, if it wishes to make capital investments, they need to have capital bids, etc. There is no particular capital programme here that is paid for out of that money. That's the same as any capital proposal, whether it's a bridge or a school. It has to go through the proper process of bidding for those resources.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pete. Councillor Peter James.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just really interested about the actual renting of the farms, especially for young families that want to go on to farm estates. I know that talking to certain farmers, the stock, especially the farmhouse, has had no improvements put in at all. I'm taking that as that there's always someone living in the properties until the lease comes up. And is there any sort of time that is actually put in by us as owners to actually improve the actual farm housing, or is it left to the tenant to actually put that into progress? And if so, they're not lucky within their 15-year lease to reinstate their tenancy, are they able or successful to be able to take some of the capital that they've put into that property back out?
Okay, so there
tenants
are
improvements.
yeah, so there are a number of points there in relation to the house. Obviously, we have a landlord responsibility in respect of the exterior of the house, make sure it's got a roof, guttering, and the electrics are safe and that sort of thing. But internally, bathrooms, kitchens, fittings, fixtures, decorating, etc., is entirely the responsibility of tenants. So the houses are taken as seen, and they need to take a view about how much they choose to spend on that, bearing in mind they'll have a 15-year tenancy. And just to correct you, we're not providing an opportunity here for an automatic extension of the 15 years. What we're saying is if after 13 years as a conversation, you think you want to be bidding again, you would be bidding against competitors. But obviously you might have a better chance of things, etc. If you've invested heavily in the farm, in the tenant investment that you're talking about, new buildings, etc., over time, that is one of the areas where we can talk about an extension of a tenancy or extending the period within the tenancy, as it were. And you are right, if there is an investment in buildings, etc., and you have improved the overall farm, then there is an adjustment that can be made at the end of the tenancy itself. And I have to say, I'll look to officers, but that's something that Hugo would do, and certainly I don't get involved in that. That's a technical adjustment that is made at the end of that period.
But to make the actual farmhouse sort of like an asset, a better asset for us, it would be nice to actually see the improvements allowed to happen, which you're allowing, but there's no capital back for the actual tenant to actually receive back for that investment they're putting into that property, is there?
No, but in terms of a farm estate, actually the rental on the house is very little. I indicated elsewhere, didn't I, that you take off a rental on the farmhouse, etc. It's actually very little, and in some of the cases, some of our smaller estates, it would be more expensive on the open market to rent a semi-detached house, in the high street than it would be to rent one of our farms, because actually it's very limited. Because these aren't to the Welsh housing standards, they're not of a high standard. We recognise that, but they're of a sufficient standard, airtight, watertight, etc. And it then is their responsibility in the business case they put forward to decide how they wish to invest in that. But the return is not from the house; it is from investment in the land, as I understand it. And if I've got that wrong, then officers, I'm sure, will step up and tell me.
Yeah, I'm also on your opening presentation, you said that there were certain tenants that didn't quite reach the funding to pay for their actual renting, and so that's why I'm a bit concerned. If they're going to put money into a property, they need to know that they're safe to actually be able to sort of regain that improvement capital, if that makes sense.
Unfortunately, some of our tenants don't pay for a variety of reasons. I wouldn't really want to discuss that here on air.
But it was mentioned in your opening statement.
Yes, absolutely, and it is a significant criteria. Some will choose to do very limited improvements to a kitchen or a bathroom, and if that's how they choose to live, as long as it's safe, we don't have to go in and ask them, talk to them about health and safety, then that is a choice for them.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Sean and then Councillor Peter Lewington.
Thank you, Councillor Angela. So I'm really pleased to see in page 7 of the policy, Councillor Jake, that commitment that the council will proactively engage with stakeholders involved in the rural estate, and of course you've mentioned it and referred to that yourself. We've seen from the surveys and the survey responses and the emails, that there's this consistent desire for better engagement, and people have called for moving beyond surveys and questionnaires, genuine dialogue, face-to-face communication, and a range of engagement methods. So and I've noted the policy does set out the plans for the triennial reviews and for biannual meetings with representative groups. So my questions are, what training will officers receive in effective engagement skills and methods? And bearing in mind that the triennial reviews do look very sort of strictly supervisory in their tone and their content, and will be very far apart, so not too far apart really to allow relationships to develop. So my second question would be, what could occur in between those triennial reviews? And my third question is about the biannual ones. Do you mean twice a year, or do you mean every 2 years? And if it's every 2 years, could that would be changed to biennial, because biannual can be used for both those things, can't it?
I think it's every 2 years, but if officers again disagree with that, they can jump up, and I'm sure we can make the necessary adjustment to get rid of any lack of clarity there. Some of these things are very technical and formal, I'm afraid. Some of these things, Councillor Sean, you don't need a degree in engagement to go along with a clipboard and check that the buildings are where they're meant to be still, and stock are being looked after, and sort of rents are being paid, and those things are discussed. So that is, I'm afraid, old school, and I don't think there'd be any particular training that would be involved in that. I'm sure we can go away and discuss what skill sets the team has in having these human-to-human dialogues over time, but it is a contractual arrangement, and it needs to be kept on that basis, of course. And in relation to some of the things that we're doing, we've got a tenant engagement or a tenant Farm Tenants Group, and Councillor Gary, I know, who's popped his hand up there, has met with me and them now on a couple of occasions, and that's something that we would want to keep doing. I've already gone back out to the farm unions, and I'm setting up discussions with them, because it's just about a regular dialogue, just an open exchange of views, and they've come back and said yes, they're happy to have a conversation about where this policy sits, and you know, so it's keeping those lives. It's about relationships. So I'm not certain that there's any particular engagement skills necessary, because it's about holding conversations. But I'm sure officers can take that away.
Okay, Councillor Sean, can I just add an extension to that? So there's a lot of mention of communication. That seems really positive to me in the policy, and there's also a lot of talk about sort of managing the state. So in terms of inspections, working with the farmers to ensure basically that the rents are paid, isn't it, ultimately, but to ensuring all those things as you've outlined. I'm just wondering about the capacity of the service to do all these things. So Councillor Sean there mentioned training, but do we have enough capacity within the service to manage the estate in this way going forward?
So I've indicated on 2 occasions already that we are going out to market to get an apprentice land surveyor to add some additional capacity. Gwilym has already indicated previously that there's a recognition that we can't leave the land surveyor on his own in relation to this, and that as part of the property team there is wraparound support for that land surveyor, who's obviously got the technical expertise in managing these and knows the farms intimately, but to help with paperwork and comms, etc., which may not be personal strengths that they have and areas for development. So there's a team approach to that as well, and we're looking to extend that team within the cost envelope that is available.
Okay, again, that's really positive news, so thank you for that. Councillor Sean, you've still got your hand up, but you've done okay. Councillor Pete Lewington, and then Councillor Gary, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, apologies for coming back, and apologies to the leader as well. I was trying to take on board all the figures we were talking about earlier, and I wasn't quite sure if I got the answer to my other question, which was around how are the rent income targets set? Because I guess that's quite an important point there, because it looks like it can move around, as the leader said, as we potentially dispose of assets. But then that target, not only is it important how it's set, but that will affect, if I'm reading this correctly, the amounts that would be reinvested back into the estate. So, yeah, question was how are the rent income targets set, please?
I think if it's all right with you, I want to make sure that we're absolutely watertight on this, and therefore I will invite Jane. Jane and I have had a number of discussions about this, just to make sure we're all square. But Jane Thomas, are you available? I can see you're online. Yes, good.
I am here. So in terms of setting rent, that can be an annual discussion as part of the budget process. So if we usually use inflation and other factors across all of the fees and charges that we set, but there's nothing stopping us look at what level of increase is appropriate in that context, but it would be in the context of farm tenancies, obviously, rather than just general inflation or whatever. We'd need to see what everybody was doing across the piece. Does that help? Does that answer everything? Sorry if it doesn't.
I'm not certain that answers the question in respect of the income, because obviously if we've got Gwilym, but if we review our rents, obviously we're reviewing our rents, and that shifts the overall income, and that's absolutely fine. Within, as our income grows, the target of return to the corporate pot will grow appropriately, and I think but Gwilym.
Thank you. In relation to the farm income, it's approximately 1.3 is the target, and that has been set in 2025-26 financial year. And what we're looking to do is when we do undertake rental reviews, which we undertake periodically with all tenants, any increase in those rental income above the 1.3 million, we'll be looking to reinvest it back into the farm estate to address issues such as, for example, the asbestos backlog and other elements. If we do require further staffing elements, to try to again reinvest that, and that is where we're going to look to fund the graduate rural surveyor as well. So I think if you're talking about the targets will remain as it is, as an income target, which will be reinvested back into the corporate pot, but anything above that target will be retained for the farm estate to reinvest into addressing the liabilities and also providing the council with opportunities.
Thank you, Gwilym. Can I ask an extension to that? So whilst recognising the importance of having that target for rental incomes, linking that to the scoring matrix on page 108, when we're looking for a new tenant, I note that the tender for rent is the highest score, 1 to 40. And I think it's really positive that there's a whole range of things that are going to be taken into consideration in finding the right tenant. But are we at risk of being weighted towards the person who bids the most, as opposed to having the right tenant for that farm to deliver the council's other objectives?
Yeah, I mean, thank you. The Farm Estate Advisory Group considered in great detail the weightings to give to all of these criteria, and of course financing the farm estate is really important. And one of the criticisms I think that has been levelled at us in the past is that these are not truly commercial rents, and the council needs to make sure that it is commercial. That said, we're not obliged to have the highest figure because we want sustainable tenancies. And I think those who have more experience on looking at tenancy applications than I've had recognise when there is an overbid. And therefore a lack of sustainability going forward. So you can bid lots either in cash or in projected investment or a combination of both of those. But actually, if the group and the expert advice that we have there says, on that basis, we don't think that is a sustainable tenancy given their business model, then that would be taken into consideration. So I think that this is a really helpful guide, but that won't get away from the fact that I think there are some very practical discussions and decisions which are made at every tenancy exchange.
Thank you for that. That's a really positive answer. I'm really pleased to hear that. Thank you.
Chair, sorry, could I
Yes.
just come back on the rent income, if you don't mind?
Yes, please. Yeah, sorry, Peter,
Sorry.
please do. Sorry, I butted
Yeah.
in there, didn't I?
No, that's okay, no problem. I think I was hearing from Jane and Gwilym, like, each year as part of the budget process and that, and we'll add a bit on for inflation and we'll review it and we'll look at this. Unless I've missed it, I still didn't get an answer to how we got to 1.3 million as the target in the first place. How was that 1.3 million set? I get the ideas about how it might increase going forwards, but how have we decided on 1.3 million?
Jane.
I'm guessing, and Gwilym can correct me if any of this is wrong, but a number of those income lines have been in the budget for a long, long time. We would have started with a level of income many, many years ago, and that would have been updated and changed to reflect where we are currently and the levels of rent we're able to rise. So I think it's probably a mix of both, but where it started absolutely back in the day, I have no idea. That's a long, long time ago, but it would be reviewed and reflect, the most current position each year when it's done.
Sorry, Chair, if I may. So what that sort of seems to me, Jane, is I don't know, we start with 10 quid. We'll add a little bit on each year, and what we've now lost sight of, if you like, is how we ever got to 10 quid in the first place. Is there ever an exercise to actually go, well, let's all just go back to the drawing board and what should the target really be, rather than just keep adding on inflation each year?
Sorry,
You can do.
crudely, yeah.
Yeah,
You
sorry,
can do that.
Councillor. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go
I was
on.
just going to say, sorry, Councillor, but it's not as straightforward as that either, because where I was taking you in terms of the answer is that this isn't a fixed asset. So, we've got less units within the estate. So that's where it's not a fixed figure and you're just adding inflation to the fixed figure. The numbers are decreasing. We're moving land to different holdings. There's a readjustment there. So it is itself changing. But you are right. There was a figure which has been in as a budget line for income, just as there is a budget line in the income for planning, which you have to be really careful to assess whether you're actually going to realistically make that. And the why we've changed the wording here is because you can't continue to inflate that at the point that you may be losing assets, and that's the point. It is dynamic, but what we're saying is within that we're trying to just give a pause, stop it at the 25-26 level, and then use some of that headroom that generates through tenancy uplifts, etc., whilst losing some houses, etc., of land through sales, to make sure we have some capacity to both invest and not lose the level of income to the council that we've become accustomed to. So we are trying to have our cake and eat it here, Councillor Pete, and it is a real difficult balancing match.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Pete. Thank you, Councillor Jake and Jane there. Councillor Gary and then Councillor Sean.
Thanks, Chair. I think I just wanted to sort of champion in the work that's gone on in the background a bit on this one a little bit. It has been in development for a couple of years. It's been an interesting process. I really wanted to thank the sort of Farmer State Advisory Group as a whole. It's a cross-party group, includes farmers, non-farmers, tenant farmers, farmer owners, more environmentalists, whole range of county councillors, but also a significant chunk of officer time gone in to what we've seen today. And I think it's just worth reflecting that what we've managed to do is create a policy that looks at retaining the majority of our significant asset where we can. And I think that's to be applauded. We are the local authority with the highest number of farm holdings in the whole of Wales, and we're the 5th largest in the whole of the UK still. So that's a really positive move for our sort of rural communities. We know that there's been some failures in that. Real reason local authorities should own them is on new entrants. So the policy is trying to address that and to really support that to the best of its ability. But we know it still needs to do food, farming, environmental outputs, social outputs, community engagement, access, all of those sorts of things. So I think worth championing that. And then just really as a question or point of clarity, it's in the sort of transitional arrangements which aren't embedded in the policy, but the way that I read it and understand it and have been involved in it, what we're not looking at doing is a blanket change next week. If this policy goes through and gets agreed, we swap all of our, or attempt to swap all of our tenants from where they are to where they're going to be. So it was just a point over that in terms of the transition arrangements for how we deal with existing tenants and transferring to the new policy if it goes through the motions. And then perhaps as a recommendation really, and something we might want to put in our report so it's captured, is loads of engagement externally. So we have looked at policy developments over those 2 years. We've looked at other local authorities and what they're managing to do and how they're managing to retain or not their farm estates, and all of those sorts of things have been embedded in our learning. But we haven't yet got to the point of bringing it back to the full councillors in the authority, which are always very interested in what we do or don't do with our farm estate. So a recommendation from me is that we make sure that this new policy gets put forward as part of a member development session in the very near future, if possible, please, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah. I think that's a really good suggestion. Yeah.
I think we have a date for that in the offing, Councillor Gary.
There we are. That's rare. We get an instant response to a recommendation, is it? So thank you for that. Councillor Sean, I think you're the last hand up at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew. I do have 4 questions, which I was going to stagger in between other people's questions, but if nobody else has got the hand up, shall I just go ahead with all 4?
You go ahead. Well, do you want
okay?
to ask them one at a time and see if we can get some answers for you?
Yeah, some quite quick ones. So this has come up in the consultation as well, but I wrote it down when I was reading and that's the use of the word sustainable. We don't define what we mean by sustainable in that glossary at the end of that's that really useful glossary of terms at the end of the policy, but it doesn't contain the word sustainable. And I wonder if it should, because we know from explaining sustainable powers to people that different people think sustainable means different things. Some people align it completely in their minds to environmental sustainability, whereas I think often, well, certainly for sustainable powers, we're talking about a much broader type of sustainability, not least financial sustainability. And we, one of the questions in the survey was, does the policy support a more sustainable approach? And I just wonder, given that, whether we should add a definition of what we mean by sustainable into the glossary. That's my first question.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are two definitions of sustainable.
Yes, I know.
So there are two definitions of sustainable in there. So is it environmentally, socially, and economically sustainable? That's fine. And of course, the whole thing is structured around the future generations criteria. So I'm not certain, to be honest. We need to restate the Brundtland definition of sustainability, but that's a possibility, and I just leave it there for officers to pick up. But obviously, we're interested in sustainable farm tenancies as well, and sustaining our farmers in a business sense. So there are those twin aspects there. Yes, no one has raised that.
I think we understand that, Councillor Jake, and I just wonder if we should help residents reading the policy to understand it as well.
Yeah, I mean, Gwilym's on the call. I'm sure we can add something there.
Gwilym, do you want to come in there?
Just stating on page 97, we look to define sustainability and acting sustainable and socially responsible. So we've put down about the well-being goals, about the definition of sustainable development there, which goes into the 5 ways of working, which really does help us with a bit more from a sustainability perspective. With regards to the final glossary, that was more for the Appendix A, the let-in panel, to give applicants a bit more understanding about what we mean by rent or food security, those elements. But there's no harm in us re-emphasising that definition at the back, so that any tenants who come in for the tenancies will be aware of the sustainability criteria, which we'll probably take from that page 97 and put it in there to make sure everyone is aware.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Gwilym.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Gwilym. Next one, Sian.
Yeah, so could the policy explain, just maybe just in one sentence, why the bare land holdings are limited to 5 years?
You want the policy to do that, or you want me to explain that?
No, I think it'd be useful if the policy just or puts even just one sentence below the part where it says, I think it's page 9, policy number 2, tenancies. It's in that section, and it explains that bare land holdings are limited to 5 years. But I know that came up in the consultation as well as a concern for people, and I wonder if it would be useful to have a reason underneath why it's quite different, isn't it? The equipped holdings are 15 years, and the bare land holdings are 5. And in terms of the concerns that were raised were around whether new entrants into farming would be able to make anything substantive happen within 5 years, but we must feel that they can. And I think it would be helpful for people to understand why.
So we might need to make a cross-reference to the criteria applying to rural enterprise dwellings, Councillor Sian there. But that clearly is where our thinking is. If you were to come forward with a planning proposal to establish a new business that required a mobile home on the site, which wouldn't be unreasonable, of course, and that's the position we see ourselves in Sarn. You have 3 years within the rural enterprise policy to make your business happen and work and demonstrate it's viable. In our own policy in Powys that we've introduced on small scale horticulture, we've suggested that would be 5 years. So I think perhaps we can make a cross reference there, but that was the rationale. And of course, a lot can happen in 5 years on a bare parcel of land, and the business plans coming forward for those obviously will be about establishing a very different type of business. Councillor Adrian has got his hand up. He was very keen that we looked at the 5 years in the way that we have. Adrian.
You're muted, Adrian.
No, I put my hand up for another reason, Jake. So I think you.
Okay,
Yeah.
but sorry
I
to
think
cite you, but
yeah.
I remember the conversations in the
Yeah.
the Farmer Stage Advisory Group. So we did give it a serious discussion, but your point there about how we might cross-refer that to our small-scale horticultural policy, I think, is a useful one. And I'm just looking for Gwilym to nod.
Also, Councillor Jake, I think it's fair to say that for the non-farmers in the group, there are some norms, some within this policy, aren't they, that are normal across the industry in rentals and things, the housing being one of them and different tenancy lengths being another.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Did you want to add anything, Gwilym?
I was just going to state in relation to the 5 years, it's also to aid providing people with opportunities. The quicker the turnover, sometimes the better, and it's helping those people set up and multiple different kind of opportunities there, and different people require different holdings and different types there. So, like you state, Councillor Davis, it is an industry term, and generally it's also related to investment required as well. If you're taking on a larger holding, it's often you require larger investment up front. And hence why the 15 years. Well, if you're taking a big piece of land, whilst you'll still have an investment to be made, it's less, and therefore 5 years.
I think I understand that. It came up quite a lot in the consultation, so others don't seem to understand it. And I think the cross-referencing that Councillor Jake has suggested would be really helpful. Some sort of link in the policy to enable people to understand it.
Okay.
We don't have you to tell them, Gwilym.
Okay, Sean?
That's fine, yeah. I've got the other two, but do you want to bring Councillor Adrian in first, so I'm not
I was just going to ask if that was okay. Yeah, Councillor Adrian.
Of course.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, I missed the very beginning of the meeting, and I wasn't sure what me and Gary are allowed to say because we've been part of the Farm Advisory Group.
Yeah, you're as you sit on that group as a councillor representative, you're free to be full and active part in this group.
So I could make a recommendation today, even though
you can indeed.
Yeah. My point is, we haven't the elephant in the room, always has been with all the meetings we've had with the Farm Advisory Group, as the capital target. And in the old policy, there was a 10% payback to the estate, which was never used or achieved for various reasons, and so that's why it hasn't been put in. And Gwilym came up with the idea about this increase in rental coming back to the estate over and above the targets. But my concern is, being cynical, and Pete was trying to get the answer, Councillor Pete, the 1.3 million, which is the target at the moment, well, that could soon nick back any money that's achieved, even if it went up 10% every year. So the recommendation would be that we look at that and even freeze it or reduce it. But I'm just trying to see a way of making sure money gets back to the state, because that's what's made it become in the state it has. We all recognise that, and the policy now to sell redundant houses and make it more efficient and etc. will make it more business-like. But the capital target is there. It's not been achieved, but there's a possibility it could take stuff still out of the estate. So it's a bit convoluted, but still very concerned about the amount of money coming back to the state.
So you want to make a recommendation along that we relook at the ways that we can find monies or commit to monies to reinvest into the state?
Well, the point is, if the 1.3 million target, that's a fair old chunk coming out of what is achieved every year, then they're asking for, well, the council needs and is asking for, 10 million a year, which has not been achieved. So it's a lot of pressure, isn't there? Can the 1.3 million be looked at?
Okay, I can see Jane's got her hand up.
Thank you, Jane.
Just to clarify, so the 1.3 million income target on the farm estate is about rental income. It would not apply to capital receipts.
No.
So capital receipts, and I'd have to remind myself whether we've still got a target, but that target sits across the council as a whole, not specifically to the farm. Now, if council want to invest further into the estate, that is within the council's gift to consider as part of its overarching budget plan, because you have to be mindful and make decisions when you consider the implications across the whole council. So I don't think you can dictate that that is done specifically for the farms. You have to have that much broader perspective and understand the implications of doing that in terms of the rest of the organisation as well.
Yeah, just to
Can
be
I just
clear,
come in there? Because I think,
sorry,
can
I was going.
I just, Jane, when you say that, we do it in housing because the housing income is ring fenced, isn't it, to spend on housing? So the rules aren't the same for any other enterprise. No. Okay.
The HRA is a ring fenced account and has
that's
to
a
stay like
legally
that. That's
yeah.
not the same for the farm estate.
Right.
No, and of course, what Jane has said very clearly there, any targets around sale income to offset costs, etc., have been set by council. I have been asked as portfolio holder here to take a report back to Cabinet, to other decision makers in respect of this policy. And I'm not trying to draw a wedge between Cabinet and Council, but that's just how it is to bring a paper which manages the estate in a better way. And so I don't have a gift for you in respect of Council's decisions there. We'll have to go through a process in relation to that, which is what Jane has set out. But what we have tried to do within the scope of operations here is to say that these measures that we've identified in Part 7 will improve investment in the estate. And we've been over this several times. We can only control what we can control here within this policy. The other bit is outside our scope.
Okay. So there may be a note to self there to members come budget setting time to see what can be achieved in that regard. So we've got Councillor Shan, I've got Councillor Gary, and I'm aware that time is trotting on. So can we be brief? Councillor Shan?
Sure, yeah, really briefly. In the consultation report, and I'm quoting from it here, respondents highlight the need for diversity in tenancy arrangements and recognition of women as tenants. And so the implication there is that we don't recognise women as tenants, which I'm sure can't be the case. And I wondered if we could just have a bit of clarity on what that might have meant. Does anybody understand what that concern might have come from?
I can't tell you what the individual meant, but what I can say is that we do get very good women applicants coming forward, and some are successful and some aren't. We don't have sexual bias as a criteria to carry forward, and indeed one of a highly acclaimed tenants that has reached national recognition last year. It came into our estate two years ago, and so I can't comment on that. But I think what we can continue to do is ensure that we operate in a fair and even-handed way. And I'm absolutely delighted when we have new entrants that are women. But I can't set a specific target for that. I don't think it'd be appropriate.
No, we can't set a target, but we can, through this meeting, at least reassure whoever raised that concern that women are treated in exactly the same way as men when they apply. Thank you. So my final question is, it's about it's the section of the consultation page around about page 19 and 20. And also in the email section as well, where a number of suggestions came up around new investment approaches, including community public ownership and partnerships, and alternative investment models, potentially involving community and public entities. And I wondered, do we have a response to that? Is that within our gift to explore those kinds of ideas? And is it within the purview of this policy to look at that?
No, I don't think it's in the purview of this policy to look at that, because this is in respect of the here and now about how we manage the estate, our tenancies, and the turnover of tenancies. The council has commissioned work. That report has come back into the council. I've discussed the report itself with the Farm Estate Advisory Group, and indeed, we've tried to take some of the flavour of elements of that in the revisions that we've put into the policy. But there are some big, far-reaching questions that are raised there, in particular about ownership and governance there. And at an appropriate time, they can be discussed further, but they're not for this policy. And we are also looking at, within the work there that's come back around, what the potential is for the estate to bring additionality in terms of, I don't know, electricity generation, water, carbon capture, etc. So there were two components or more of the reports that we've commissioned to give us advice. And as I've indicated already, we've tried to say that notwithstanding those things, we just need to make our future tenants ready for us to work with them to take up those opportunities as and when they come online for us. Gwilym, have I answered
Gwilym's
that
got his hand up, yeah.
to your satisfaction? You can perhaps say something more than I can.
I was just going to state about your direction. In relation to community groups, there is an existing provision within the corporate asset policy to encourage community asset transfers. That could be via disposals or could be via leases, and we actively encourage the communities to approach us. And some of the farm estate, for example, has gone into allotments. You've got the San group for horticulture. You've got schools that use our farm estate. So it is currently being used by the community, and we encourage that. And Councillor Berman has asked for us to review the corporate asset policy to look at elements like that and update those elements. And hopefully later this year, that corporate asset policy will be coming in front of the scrutiny where we can further review and improve that policy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gwilym. Yeah, and we'll look forward to receiving that. Thank you very much. So I think it's appropriate that we finish with our Vice Chair, Councillor Gary, who was Chair of that working group. So over to you, Councillor Gary.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think not wanting to carry on the debate too long, and we can obviously do a bit more of this in members, but obviously important for a public session to have the clarity, I think, that we've been seeking around investment in the estate. And I think all the comments are right and fair. I will just challenge Jane a little bit. Of course, we as the council could set a reinvestment percentage, and we had it before, and other councils do it within their farm estates. Some councils right up to 100% of capital assets reinvested direct in their farm estate. So that is within our gift. It's just we don't have it within our current budget setting and policies. But what I wanted to just try and add the clarity to, so the policy clearly states to me, and to the way I read it, that at the current budget income target, that £1.3 million-ish, that is set and will not change through this policy. So if this policy lasts 20 years, the budget income target is 1.3 million. If each year or every other year we review rents and we put them up by inflation, etc., that additional money can come back in through the estate or to the estate, and that's clearly in the policy as I see it. But also, if we have to dispose of assets within the estate that reduces the value of the estate, i.e. that 1.3 million, we can do that as each asset is disposed of. So that 1.3 million can only reduce in terms of target now, but the income can still increase. So there is a mechanism in there. It's not what we wanted as the Farm Estate Group. We've had to try and find the middle ground. So I think Adrian's point is right, still a bit unclear. And one of the recommendations we can make is to get Cabinet, because they've got the final decision, to relook at it and come back with their answer as a formal answer. That's absolutely right. But I just wanted to try and add that bit of clarity that actually there is a mechanism for reinvestment, subject to us pulling in the rents and keeping it commercial or more commercially minded and everything like that. but it's not quite where the group wanted to see us. And I think that's some of the middle ground we reached during this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gary. That's really helpful. Councillor Adrian, did you want to have some final comments or questions? You're on mute, I think, Adrian.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, thank you, Gary. You explained it a lot better than I did, because I know it's not going to happen, but if it did come to a full council debate on this, our members would push very hard that we do have some money from the capital sales. So what we want to recommend is exactly what Gary's saying, that the 1.3 million target can be adjusted down if a farm is sold. Rental increase stays with the estate. And he put it much more concisely than me, but I know that's what the members would be debating on if ever it did go to a council, other than just a briefing. So thank you for that anyway.
So shall I read out some proposed recommendations here? Sort of on the ball a bit better here. So one was raised was training for officers on effective engagement skills and methods, because we've talked about communication there as being a really important part of this. That the policy put forward as a member development session, and actually I think the date has been confirmed already as 17th of July, but I think we need to keep that on there in case anything happens that gets pushed down the line. So we add a definition of sustainable to the report glossary, as there are two, as noted in the policy, for environmentally, socially and economically sustainable, and then structured around the future generations criteria, so to meet Sian's concerns there. And of course we mustn't confuse that with sustainable farming scheme, which is a separate entity of its own, but yeah, if that could be a bit clearer defined. The policy to have an explanation regarding why bare land holdings are for 5 years, and to make a cross-reference to that criteria applying to the rural enterprise dwellings. So again, Sian, that hopefully will meet your concerns and misunderstanding there. And then this is the key one really: review how monies could be reinvested into the estate as part of the overarching budget plan. So would that meet the requirements under that? So Councillor Gary, you've got your hand up, and I've got Councillor Pete Lewington.
It was just on the first one, Chair. I think what we heard from Gwilym as well, yes, of course we all need staff training and stuff around communication and engagement, but actually what I think I heard was our estates team and our corporate assets team can call on support from other more experts in the council field in terms of comms and how to engage and things like that. So we don't have to necessarily upskill everyone in every element, do we? We've got whole teams that are there and employed to do comms and engagement better. But what the farm estate team needs is support from those to be able to do that better. So I think just a tiny bit of clarity to that bit of wording, that was all.
Yeah, no, good. That's good. Thank you very much. And Councillor Pete Lewington?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just the only two thoughts from me is whether we could have a bit more explanation of the methodology behind that rent income target, how it's set and all that, because it's still buzzing around in my head, if I'm honest. And then like the finance, the paragraph 2 there, I'm more of a figures man than a words man, so I don't know, would it be possible to just see some figures to actually bring those words alive? So I've heard this 1.3 banded around a lot, but I don't know if it means you've got to get 1.4 million pounds worth of rental income to invest 100,000 or what. So sorry, I'm rambling a bit now, but whether there could just be some figures there to just try and explain that and bring it alive a bit more.
So, and maybe would it be appropriate then if that could come at the member development? So when we're not proposing that goes in the policy.
No,
to explain how it's done.
Yeah, okay. That's a good idea, Chair. Yeah.
Okay, so if we could add that into that recommendation, possibly. Councillor Jake, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, no, that's fine, and I did ask Jane to look at some modelling potentially, so that that you can see an example, for instance, about how things might work in the future. It was just on the very final point about budget expectations. Look, clearly we've got a budget advisory group, and if there is an appetite for members to engage with the budget advisory group, because in setting the budget for next year they want to see clear investment in this or something else, then that clearly needs to be funded, doesn't it? And we've only got so much money to spend, and if the members decide that they want to spend it on a non-statutory service and remove money from a statutory service in order to do so, that will be a matter for members at the full council meeting. So all I'm saying is, Pete, don't, work with us, don't shake your head. If we can find together a way of investing in X, Y, or Z, without disinvesting in something else, then fine. But we have got a finite resource, haven't we? And that's what we've got to work together on. If there is an ambition to do that, the way to do it is to work with us through Budget Advisory Group to set that budget into next year that you feel works well across this and other areas.
Okay, thank you, Councillor
Could
Jake.
I just pop back in there, Chair, if I may?
Very quickly then, because I'm sort of trying to round it up.
No, sorry, Leader. I wasn't shaking my head in denial or anything. I agree with your underlying sentiments that you say there, and always happy to work together. It was just I felt you were pushing me down a road that was saying, no, you can't do that because of X, Y, Z. But we've still got lots to explore when we are setting the budget. So it was that premise I was shaking my head around, not your underlying sentiments. Thank you, Chair.
So it may be appropriate, members who are really keen on this element, that join the budget advisory group if you're not already. I don't know who's on that, so that maybe there's a plea there. I believe I'm right in saying there's no limit on who can be part of that group. So if there was an interest, maybe that's something worth exploring. So members, thank you very much. We've got 5 recommendations there. If you're all happy, I think we need a show of hands to say we're happy with those. We've tweaked them a little bit, and Kath will tidy them up for us. I want to thank all the officers for bringing that. And for my part, I'm rather pleased. I think the Farm Advisory Group there have clearly done an awful lot of work. And from where we were 6 or 12 months ago, the direction that this looked it was going in, this seems a far more positive position for the Council Farm Estate. So well done to all those who've worked on that.
I'd like to place on record my thanks, Councillor Andrew, to the team there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's really nice to be reviewing, albeit not exactly as you would like it, a far more positive position. So thank you for that. And hopefully our recommendations there will help go some way to bringing it more in line with your thoughts. So thank you all, members. Thank you to all the officers that have all come along today. I know an awful lot of you here. Appreciate your time, and we'll bring this meeting to a close. If members of the committee would like to stay on just for a 5-minute debrief, then please do so. Otherwise, thank you all and have a good rest of your day.